Hello, welcome back. It's chapter 8. We're talking about measurement here in conversions, and I'm going to teach you something called unit analysis, and I really encourage you to try to use this because you can use it on anything. Here's where I'm going to frustrate you. You're going to think, well, I know how to do this. I can multiply, and some of them you probably do. But the thing is, you're going to eventually run into measures you might not be familiar with, and we can apply what it is I'm trying to teach you to that. And if you learn how to do the questions this way, it can be used for anything, any kind of conversion you ever run into. So before we go any further, you need to make sure you have this paper. It's a yellow paper, and I probably handed them out in class at some point, I hope. You can pick it up at the Math Resource Center, and I will probably put one of those on my website where I drop the other notes and things, so you could grab it there. But you will have this paper with you on my tests, the test for this chapter, and you'll also have it on the final exam. So that means that it's good news. It means you don't have to memorize all of these things, how many cups are in this, how many pints are in that, and the weight, and all of this stuff you'll have to refer to, particularly when we get to converting from US to metric, because they're just some really strange numbers that you've probably never seen before. So the how is going to be really valuable to you here as we go. So that's the plan. It's probably going to take us several videos, and let's just dive right into things. Hopefully you have the notes in front of you. Let's start with a linear measure. Well, linear measure is basically what we use to measure anything of distance, a two-dimensional measure there, such as inches, feet, meters, kilometers. It comes from the word line. You can see it right there, linear. It's spelled L-I-N-E right there with an A-R tacked on. It's just pronounced differently, line and linear. But that's what it means. It's basically measuring lines or straight line distances. Well, referring back to this table here, we're going to dive into it right away. Our first conversions are, you definitely want to get used to where things are on this paper, so when you have it on the test, you're comfortable, you know where things are. We're looking right here in this area, if you can see my mouse moving. There, we're looking there first, okay, the US units of measure and their equivalents, kind of in the middle of the page. We're looking there first because this question is asking me to convert from feet to inches. So again, you're probably sitting there going, well, I know how to do this. You multiply it or divide it by that number. But this is about how to get to the answer in a way that in the big picture really is easier when you understand this. So here's what I'm going to challenge you to do, if you're taking notes, is to write down what it is you start with. In this case, you start with 18 feet and put that over 1. You always put it over 1. And then we're going to multiply. Now here's the trick. If you recall, when we multiply fractions, we can divide out common factors in the numerator and the denominator when we multiply. So instead of putting something down, the first thing I want to do is match this unit here. Because what that will allow me to do will be to cancel out feet. Now this unit here, this basically has to represent, that's supposed to be a quote. That was bad. Alright, ignore that. Let's do quote 1. That's the number 1 right here. Another quote that got messed up. My ink pen doesn't work too well in this PowerPoint. These two values have to make the number 1. So what I would like to have is on a conversion where feet is equal to inches. Now you probably know that, but let's refer to our paper here. And the white's not showing up too well on here. Maybe I'll change my pen color. That'd be nice. Let's go to blue so I can write here. 12 inches is equal to 1 foot. Okay, so that right there, those two measures being equal, if I put 12 inches over 1 foot, I basically have two measures that are equal. And what is any number over itself equal to? The number 1. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually multiplying this 18 times 12 inches over 1 foot, which is really what's happening when you know to multiply by 12. You've just changed feet into inches. Now mathematically, this label is canceling out because there's 1 in the numerator and 1 in the denominator. And anything over itself is 1. So here you have 8. Now you notice what's left. You have 18 times 12. That's my numerator. All right, and that works out to be 216, and my unit is inches, which is what I wanted here. So I have 216 inches over 1 times 1 is 1. So in other words, that leaves me with an answer of 216. That's called unit analysis, and it makes it so much easier. Again, we could give you some bizarro conversions here that you've never heard of, and there's going to be some of that when we get into the medical applications shortly here. So learning this technique is worth your time, because when you get it, it makes it so easy for you. Let's take a look at number 2, where we have this fraction. All right, well, here's the way we do it. Again, just write down what it is you have. Please write down the label with it. That's important. That's the unit. Put it over 1. Right now, we want to multiply that times. Now, before you do anything else, you have to match this unit here. That's the first thing you do. You have to, because you want to change the yards. In this case, you want to change yards to feet. So I want to look to see, do I have a conversion where I have feet equals yards? And I do right here. 3 feet is 1 yard. Okay, so then I can put this feet over yards, and I can say 3 feet and 1 yard is the same thing. Again, that's the number 1 right here. 3 feet over 1 yard represents a value of 1 because they're equal. Look what you've done. Now these yards have canceled out, and you're left with feet, which is what you're looking for. So what you're going to do now is you're going to multiply 2 5/6 times 3. Now you should know by now how to do that on your calculator, and I would just put that in my calculator, and that should work out to be 8.5. And double check me. If you don't know how to do that on your calculator, you need to bring that to class, and let's get that figured out, because you want to do that and not be caught with things like how to multiply fractions and get those issues wrong at this point. So if I did the same thing with this problem right here, let's look at this. This one's going from miles to inches. All right, well, this one's a little trickier. I have 3.8 miles. Now, please just stick with the method. 3.8 miles over 1 times miles has to go here. You shouldn't even think about the problem until you've done that on your paper. You write it down, you put it over 1, you put it times something, and you match the label, because you have to get rid of the miles. Now, we would like to have a conversion where we have miles equals inches, but let's look and see. Well, I see miles equals feet. No, I see yards to feet. No, that doesn't matter. I can't use that one. I see feet to inches. I can't use that one either. Well, I've got a problem. The only conversion I have now is miles to feet. So I'm going to have to use miles to feet, which would be 1 mile is 5,280 feet. Now here's what you have. You've canceled out miles, and now you have feet. But you don't want feet, you want inches. So you have to continue going and say, do you have a measure where feet equals inches? And you do. It's the same one right here you have that you used earlier. So you're going to have to multiply this one again. You're going to match this label feet with this label here. Again, that will cancel out the feet here, but you want feet over inches, which we do know that 12 inches is the same as 1 foot. So look what we have, what we're left with now. You're left with 3.8 times 5,280 times 12. So you put all that in your calculator, and it should shoot out 240,768. Okay? Sounds like a lot of work, but I'm telling you, it's worth it. It's worth it to learn how to use the labels. Use the labels. The labels. Put them down, then fill in the numbers, and then just let the math happen, because you have your calculator can do all the computation for you. And if you do that, you honestly hardly have to think about it once you've got it set up correctly. Again, it's about matching the label that you have that you want to get rid of with a diagonal, because it cancels it out right there. Okay, hopefully it'll pick up a little bit, but again, I want to work all these out in your notes for you to see them, so it's going to take us a little bit of time. So we will pick up with the next video here shortly.